Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Warhoundcast. This week, I'm joined by Nathan.
Hello.
And Rich.
Hello.
And we're not joined by Leo because he bailed on us in the last second. And we're going to be talking about our lists for the Surrey Championship. I think all the tickets are sold out now, so if you're listening to this, it's probably too late. But we do have a Facebook page if you want to come and have a look at us. And it's being played on the 1st and 2nd of February. It is a 5-round ITC event. And yeah, it should be very cool, kind of standard ITC rules package. So, but before we get into that, Nathan, you've been playing much 40k recently?
Yep. Well, yes. I've been playing normal amounts of 40k.
Okay.
So
what is normal amounts of 40k for you, considering you do have your YouTube channel?
I haven't done any YouTubing since the first week of January.
Okay.
So I've been super busy with like normal work stuff.
Was that my game with
with
Nikki?
Yeah. I haven't even edited that yet. So but that is being done this week, so it'll be out at the weekend, hopefully.
Yeah. What have you been playing? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I've just been like I've had a couple of our campaign games, and then I've had a few test games with my Elder that I'm taking to the Surrey Championship, which we'll obviously talk about in a minute.
So we'll ignore the Elder for a second. What have you been running in your NIDS list? Because I presume it's all Psychic Awakening stuff.
Yeah, it's really complicated to explain without going too far into it. But it's basically a triple battalion. The first battalion is just standard Kraken stuff, so like Swarmlord, Broodlord, Gene Stealers, etc. The only Psychic Awakening thing that's in there is the Gene Stealers have an adaptive physiology, so they consolidate 2d6 inches, which is really good. Then I've got a Jormungandr battalion, which has a Tyrannid Prime, which is the Tyrannid warrior character, 2 Neurothropes, which are the Psychers with various spells or powers, and the main part of that. So I've got 2 like 10-man units of Termagants just to flesh out the battalion. And then the main component of that is a 9-man unit of warriors with Death Spitters and Bone Swords, because they got quite a lot of stuff that can buff them in Psychic Awakening. So you can make them with various psychic powers and stratagems. You can make them, and adaptive physiology as well. So they've got adaptive physiology to make them ignore -1 and -2 AP weapons, and then they've got a psychic power now that makes them -1 damage, like a Wave Serpent. So
Okay.
you can make them really tanky with like Catalyst and stuff like that as well. So I've basically got them in Jormungandr, one because of the always in cover, so it gives them a 3-up save against pretty much everything that isn't -3 AP or ignores cover. And also Jormungandr's stratagem is you can spend 1 CP for any number of units at the start of the game to put them in Deep Strike. And they have to come up with a burrowing unit. So I've got just a 3-man unit of Raveners, and yeah, they just pop up stuff, shoot twice. There's 2 methods of 2d6, not
3d6.
3d6 charging and discard the lowest dice. So they can actually make a reliable charge out of Deep Strike as well as their shooting. And then I've got another battalion, which is Behemoth or Behemoth, whichever way you want to say it. That is another Broodlord, another Neurothrope, and it's 2 Ripper Swarms and then another unit of Gene Stealers, which I am paying Toxin Sacks for, so 6s to wound are flat 2 damage. Because along with this like new stratagems and stuff, each Hive Fleet got a new psychic power specific to the Hive Fleet. The Behemoth one is you get +1 to wound. So the Gene Stealers in that with the psychic power are rending where their rending claws go off on 5s, so -4 flat 2 damage on 5s, which is really good. Especially when you've got like 80 attacks.
Yeah, it's not dissimilar to the old Chaos Bloodletter bomb in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean the only problem with them is the delivery. So I've actually got a Tyrannocyte in my list, which is the transport that can deep strike. It's basically a drop pod. So I've got them in a drop pod that comes down either turn 2 or turn 3. But because of the new, there's like 4 ways of getting a 3d6 charge now in NIDS. One of them's a relic, which you can give to a character to replace their adrenal glands. So that's on my Tyrannid Prime. One of the stratagems is if you have a synapse unit within an inch of an enemy unit, you can 3d6 charge into that unit. So the relic kind of combos with the that stratagem anyway, because you can, if you give it to a Tyrannid Prime, he's a synapse model, so he can 3d6 charge, and then you can use a strat to 3d6 charge whatever else. And then there's also a stratagem for 3d6 charging at a unit that you've shot at, and if that unit's lost a model, you can 3d6 charge into them as well. And then the other one is you can get a 3d6 charge on a lictor, which I also have. So there's 4 ways of getting into combat basically out of deep strike, which is really good. The only game I've played with it so far is against Rob, and his list was just a very hard matchup for something like I've got, because he bought a little craft world. I think it was like a Spearhead or a Vanguard. I can't remember which one it is. But then he brought Drakari with 4 Raiders and Hellions and jet bikes. So it was very hard to lock anything down.
Mm.
And he had so much movement, he could really screen me out. And he also had Vect as well, which was a big thing because I haven't got a lot of shooting in this, so I'm kind of relying on the warriors when they come down. So they've basically got
Sorry.
like I think it's like 20. It's either 18 or 21 heavy bolter shots, and then they've got 3d3 heavy venom cannon shots. And then obviously I can shoot twice for 2 CP because they're an infantry unit, so you get quite a lot of use out of them. But he vectored it, so
yeah. I've found, not so much with Nid, but with my sort of Chaos Horde list in the past, Dark Eldar are a really tough matchup.
Yeah.
Just the amount of stuff they've got with Fly and the amount of stuff that's quite resilient to infantry.
Yeah, the stuff with Fly, stuff's resilient. They've got so much maneuverability that they can easily like screen you out multiple turns in a row. Just because they can, they can make sure things are in places where they need to be, as opposed to, only having like 5-inch movement or whatever. Everything like flies and has like 12 to 16 movement. So, but it did perform as it should have. Oh, and then so I had another game against another guy in our group, Will, and he was playing Admech, and that the list really shone in that game, because everything kind of went the way that I thought it would on paper. So the initial Kraken Gene Stealer rush got into his lines, killed like 2 units, then 2d6-inch consolidate, which I think I rolled a 9 on, which allowed me to like move across like this huge gap in between where his infantry were and his dune crawlers. And then I just tagged his dune crawlers and had them tied up for like 3 turns, whilst everything else was like jumping in and that. The warriors came down, I cast Catalyst on them, I used all the strats on them to make them like -1 to damage, and obviously they had their adaptive physiology to ignore -1 AP and -2 AP. and he shot his entire army at them, and he did 1 wound. So yeah, maybe that might have been a bit on the lucky side for me, but it definitely worked, and we called the game before my Behemoth Gene Stealers even came in on the board.
Yeah, your list has got a lot of stuff that is very fast and gets into opponents' lines really quickly. And then when it gets in there, it tags into them. Will's had quite a heavy gun line, and I would hate facing your list with my Eldar list, but or your Tyranid list at least. I'm not particularly sure I want to fight your Eldar list either, but there we are.
Well, maybe Rich can comment on that because he's bared the brunt of the Seer Council.
Okay, so what are you taking to Surrey Championship, Rich?
The list I created, I've not played this list. So this will be like the second time I've actually played Imperial Fist. So I'll quickly run through it. So in my first battalion, I'm taking a Chaplain Venerable Dreadnought, and I've given him the recitation of focus because my only gripe that I have with the Catechism of Fire is that it's the closest enemy unit, visible enemy unit, and
it's such a powerful thing, though.
Yeah, if he's at because the dread's going to be more or less at the back because he's got the twin las cannon, so his sole purpose is just to try and destroy like sort of heavy like tanks and stuff. So, but if they're going to be screening the tanks, then it's kind of a waste of a of a litany because it would be casting it on himself. Because if he does move for the rest of focus, if he does move, he will still be he will still have a ballistic skill too. So that's why I've just chosen that instead. I've also paid extra CP to give him a warlord trait, which is the siege master, which gives him the +1 to hit damage anyway. I think it is. So add 1 to the wound roll against the building or vehicle. So I'm getting that anyway now. So obviously I'm gonna have to pay a CP for it, but it's worth it. So yeah, I've got him, and then I have a chapter master. He's my warlord as well. He's got the relic eye of Hypnoth, and he's got the Hand of Dawn warlord trait. Then I got 3 5-man squads of intercessors with stalkerbolt rifles. Blah blah, and then I have a chief apothecary, and I've got the chapter ancient, 6-man squad of Centurion Devastators, all bolters. I've got a Leviathan Dreadnought, Storm Ray cannons, and then in my second battalion I've got a Smash Captain, a Lieutenant, another 3 5-man squads of intercessors. And then finally, I've got 2 whirlwinds, and that is the list so far. But I've paid, I mean, a lot of CP in this. I've had to take dual battalion because it's like so for the
5
chief
CP, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got 5 left. So the chief apothecary and the prime, they were like a 6 CP. Oh yeah, and to have the extra relic as well. So they cost 2 CP each. That's 4. Obviously, the chapter master's 2, and then paying another CP for the chaplain dreadnought to have the warlord trait. So that's 5. And then Siegebreaker cohort in the first battalion, that would be 6. And then I can't remember where else I've spent any, but yeah, there's a lot of CP. So, but having 5 CP plus the because I've got the Hand of Dawn warlord trait. Hopefully, if I roll well for that, I could potentially be back up to 8 command points. So even though I've spent a hell of a lot already, I have that potential to still have a fair amount in game as well to spend on some some of the good stratagems that they have. But yeah, I'm looking forward to using this. I've never used Leviathan Dreadnought before or Chaplain Dread. At the moment, Chaplain Dreadnought seems to be quite a popular thing, as we've kind of saw in the upcoming LVO. A lot of people are spamming them, so that'd be interesting to use.
There's quite a quite a few of the big names. Like
Oh yeah,
everyone of the lists we looked at was like Supreme Command with 3 Chaplain Dreads.
yeah, it's mental. It is absolutely mental. Like I think I would like to try 3 Chaplain Dreads because I think that'd be quite good. So I'll probably in the future I might just have to drop the Leviathan. But I've still also seen a lot of not on all like on the LVO lists, like a lot of the Imperial Fist lists, people using the Relic Whirlwind Scorpiuses, and also I've seen them being used in some of the Iron Hand lists, and yeah, I'm thinking like maybe going down that route in the future as well. Especially for Imperial Fist, because if you got triple Relic Whirlwinds just lying in the back, just absolutely annihilating your opponent's heavy support. If you get turn one, it's that's a real sucker punch to whoever you're playing against.
I think that's the thing that a lot of armies struggle to beat Marines in a sort of fair gunfight, as it were. Especially if they go second, and therefore there's this kind of move towards having things that can hide. So you've seen like the Talon tank commanders come into vogue because they can shoot after moving and hide themselves that way. And I think if you look at a lot of Marines, firepower is so good that you don't mind taking a slight hit in efficiency or sort of value for points to get that indirect fire. So you get rid of your bad matchups, as it were, I think, a lot of the times. And the Scorpius is just a very, very powerful weapon anyway. It's quite expensive and it's not that tough. But if you're hiding behind a ruin somewhere, then who cares?
Well, yeah, not only that, some people are not only spamming, they're not spamming triple them, they're also spamming triple Thunderfire cannons as well. So it's just, you know what I mean? If you get turn one, with triple Thunderfire and triple Scorpius Whirlwinds, or even just triple regular Whirlwinds, that's a lot of damage you're dealing out in that turn one. And by the time they've got their turn one, I mean they can't see half your army because it's well hidden. And they got I just think now like units that don't need line of sight are just like they're the winning, the kind of like the winning units. They're like the winning lists that you kind of not need, but help massively.
They remove a lot of counterplay options, don't they?
Yeah.
I think it's actually a shame that Marines have the best artillery, because I don't view them as an artillery faction. That should be something like Imperial Guard would be the artillery, should have the best artillery, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, like with the Basilics and the Wyverns, like
they're very good.
Not exactly they're great compared to the what the Space Marines have got right now.
They're still pretty good.
They are still decent. Like, I mean, even Eldar have their Night Spinners and the support weapons. I mean, I've not used support weapons, but I think I saw in the chat earlier, Nathan, you were saying that you've dropped your support weapons from your Eldar list because they just weren't, doing a whole bunch for you.
It depends what support weapons you have, and I'm going to jump in here because I run a lot of them.
Just before you, mine are completely different from Euan's. So I'm running Shadow Weavers, which is in my list at the moment. I'm not changing my list now, but they haven't really done anything. I mean, people know what they do as soon as they ask what they do, and I'm like, oh, it's a Shuriken Cannon Mortar that has 48 inch range. They're just like, okay, well, I'm just going to deploy away from it then. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, well, I've got nothing in my list that can hold the backfield apart from them, because everything goes forward. So actually, they just don't do anything at all. In all 4 games that I've played, they haven't done anything. So I'm just thinking, like, I've got enough HQs to. I'm running dual battalion at the moment, but I've got 6 HQs, so I can easily run a triple, and that would help me out far more than having 3 guns that, for the most part, roll about like 9 shots.
Yeah.
Whereas I could have I could replace that 9 shots with like 24 Storm Guardians.
Yeah.
So
it gives you more board presence for less things.
Yeah, exactly. It synergizes with the way that my list goes as well. Very much so, because my list is so buff heavy, and the buffs are really reliable to get off as well with how I've sort of split the warlords and relics up and stuff. But yeah, I'll let you go onto yours and then.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go too much into games I've played because I'm essentially playing the same games as the same list that I'm going to be running at the tournament with some minor tweaks here and there. But I played a guardsman player yesterday who I'd played before with my list, and he said, I've come up with a list that I think is specifically designed to counter you with guard. I'm like, oh, okay, we'll see what happens. I went first and he conceded after his first turn, which is kind of funny. But the game before I played Dennis's Blood Angels, had one of the best games I've had for a long time, actually. His two very contrasting list styles. I'm very gunline heavy. He's very assault focused. And having a lot of swing turns. And I think the longest combat we've had in 8th edition, I've had in 8th edition at least, which was an 8-round melee between my Wraith Blades, 2 squads of Intercessors, a Lieutenant, and 2 Blood Angel characters that I couldn't remember the names of. That went on from the start of turn 2 to the end of round 4 with basically no one leaving or falling back. But a real nice scrap in the thing.
That's similar to what I had last night. And I turned 2 deep struck my Guardian Defenders and then charged into a Tyrannofex and wrapped it for like 5 turns.
But the difference being that there were Blood Angels characters and Wraithguard. They're both powerful assault units. It's not a tying up. It's a proper ding dong fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll go on to my list first then. It's well, I guess we've done Richard's list. So I have a battalion and 2 spearheads. I have a Farseer, a Warlock, a Wraith Seer, and a Spirit Seer dribbled across the various factions. The Farseer amazingly doesn't have Doom, which I think was a really weird thing to point out. And the reason for that is, if you haven't listened to this before, I'm running a Expert Crafters / Masterful Shots build, which allows me to reroll a hit and a wound each time I shoot and ignore cover. Because a lot of my things only have 1 or 2 shots each, I'm not worried about getting full rerolls from Doom because a lot of my stuff is rerolling the wound roll anyway. And that's, you'll see, especially as I go through the list, how that's built around. So I normally go for Executioner and Fortune. The Warlock has Protect. The Wraithseer has a psychic power that is irrelevant 99% of the time. If you ever see a Wraithseer psychic list, it's terrible, and they don't have access to Smite. So they basically have 3 minor buffs that are overcosted. And a Spirit Seer who normally has Quicken, just to chuck things up the field. I have minimum troop squads. I have 2 Dire Avenger squads and a Ranger squad. Minimum tax. If I could take Storm Guardians, I would. And the reason I can't take them is because I don't want to spend the money for the upgrade kit. I've added in a striking Scorpion squad kind of at the last minute, which is minimum squad with an Exarch who's taking essentially the strength 10 Power Fist with his Exarch power. They've yet to make it into combat or do anything of note apart from being a deep strike objective holder. But hey, there you are, 54 points for a mild melee threat. The biggest addition upheaval in my list over the past couple of months is I've gone to Wraith Blades with Ghost Axe and 4 shields, just to give a really durable melee threat to people. I'd kind of got sold on them and then tried out Shining Spears again after Chapter Approved. I was very down on Shining Spears pre-Chapter Approved. Without giving anything away, I played Nikki in the battle report I mentioned with Nathan. And they did a lot of damage very quickly. And I'm like, okay, might have to have another look at these again. So it's a trade-off there, because the Ghost Blades are much, much, much tougher, but are also far less resilient, especially in melee combat. Then the kind of the core of the list.
Are you just before you get into your staff? Are you running 10 of them now or 5?
Wraith Blades 10.
Yeah.
So in the game I had with Nikki, I had 5 and 6 Shining Spears.
Yeah.
Only because at that time I didn't have all the Wraith Blades painted up. Now I do. So.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And the Wraith Blades are some of my best painted models, and they're still really bad. But there we are. I'm not a good painter. I do try, but I'm not very good. Then the core of the list is 9 support weapons in 3 squads, and they become an individual squad after firing. 8 of them are vibro cannons. 1 of them is a D cannon, just because the D cannon ignores line of sight, and I've got enough points to get one in. And these are very nasty. Essentially, they start off as an auto cannon, roughly speaking, some slight differences. Every time you shoot something that's already been shot by a vibro cannon, you get +1 to wound and +1 to AP. And because they're only up to a maximum of +2 to wound, +2 to the AP. And because they're re-rolling a hit and a wound each time they shoot with 2 shots, you very often end up making people take 2 saves per gun. And then at damage 2, they can really rack up the damage quickly. They put on a lot of very reliable damage. And because they each fire individually, there's very little overkill. Then I have a Wave Serpent. It's got some star cannons. It tends to carry the Dire Avengers into the middle of the field and just be a pain. 3 Wraith Lords, all identical, with Eldari missile launchers, Bright Lance, and some Shuriken catapults. They're pretty good. They provide another nice option to the vibro cannons for anti-tank, and the missile launcher gives them the plasma shots, which are the plasma missiles, which are essentially the same as frag missiles with additional IP to take care of some infantry. And then I've got some Night Spinners to round out the list, which I've never really rated that highly, but the more I've been playing with them, the more I've come to appreciate how good they are and how good they are at finishing off targets. They'll very rarely run out and do 10 damage to something, but their ability to sort of do 3 or sort of 2-4 wounds very reliably to something hiding at the back, especially, they benefit, I'd argue, almost anything more than anything else with the ignore cover things at getting rid of a mortar team that's hiding in a building.
Yeah.
And this list isn't especially complex. It wants to engage you in a gunfight. It really wants to go first. And if it does go first and you can't hide, it'll do a lot of damage to things in the open. It's got a lot of weaknesses, to be fair. It's not the most resilient list in the world, although it does have quite a lot of armor. And it is very, very vulnerable to wrapping. And a lot of the choices I've tried to make have been to try and mitigate that as best I can. So in some matches, I'm perfectly happy to chuck the Night Spinners forward repeatedly to try and get a deep strike screen. It does okay against deep striking threats, but any sort of fast infantry or jet bike unit, like Nathan's Seer Council, can just get into its lines and start wrecking things at a very horrible rate, because support weapons don't fight that well in melee combat. And even Wraith Lords don't have enough attacks to get through something with a decent in-run save. So they do struggle there. And the Wraith Blades are tanky, but they hit on 4, so they don't have a lot of damage. But there you are. That's my list. It's been doing quite well in friendly games recently. It does very well when it goes first. It was designed to basically outshoot Marines if it goes first. And it's done that pretty well in the games I've been playing.
It's a weird one, because when I first looked at that, because I saw the after the book came out. So what's the Eldar one? Is it Phoenix Rising? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. After that came out, I was sort of like, there wasn't really a lot that came out of it, and then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks or a week after, I saw people talking about this 9 vibro cannon kind of thing, and you look at it and you go, well, at the end of the day, it kind of is just like an autocannon. But you really don't appreciate how much the +2 to wound does.
Yeah, because a lot of people,
until you come up against it and you're all of a sudden you're taking 2 saves again and again and again and again and again, and all of a sudden you've suddenly lost 20 wounds.
Yeah, that's the thing. The first game I played Stuart's Chaos Knight list, and he left one of his knights out in the open and wanted to rotate his iron shields on his other knight. So combined with Jinx, they wrecked it in no time at all. I had some Reapers in that list, which also did a lot of damage, to be fair, in the minimum 3-man squad with the Reaper Exarch having an extra shot.
Yeah.
They do loads of damage in that mode, but they're just so fragile, especially to things like Thunderfire cannons, which they can't hide from. In fact, it was the the game I played versus you, Nathan, on stream it was Eldar versus Grey Knights, where again we'll keep it spoiler free, but they basically the Reapers came out and did loads of damage to you, and then on your turn you killed all the Reapers effectively.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I've got to drop these.
Yeah, there was one left.
Yeah.
So.
And I started looking at the vibro cannons as something that they're not hard to kill. Toughness 5 wounds, 4-up save, but they're awkward to kill.
Yeah, they
and
are.
That's just their kind of thing. If you shoot into them with something like a melter cannon, you can often find yourself overkilling them. And if you a lot of people I found try and get greedy and try and take out 2 or 3 and end up with a couple of them on 1 or 2 wounds each. And because they don't have a degrading profile, they still fire at full effectiveness effectively.
Yeah.
And as I said, because they've got that reroll wound especially inbuilt, it's taken out the need for Doom in my list, which allows my Farseer to perform a very different role. For a while I was thinking of dropping it, but the Farseer, in fact, which considering how good a Farseer is pretty nuts. But in the end, the Executioner itself is a great tool for unwrapping a unit from vibros, because you can get it into combat and things like that. Yeah, it's been, as I said, very effective in the league game so far.
Yeah,
I'm interested. Sorry, Nathan. Euan, like how do they do? So if you're going second, I don't know what matchups you've had with that list so far, but I imagine I was just thinking like against maybe something like Iron Hands, because the vibro cannons, they need line of sight, so obviously they need to be sort of like stuck out so they to be able to see their targets. Like, how would they fare? Or have you come up against something like Iron Hands and gone second? And if you did, how did they fare? Did they get destroyed quickly? Or
I haven't played Iron Hands going second. I still think against a lot of Marine lists, especially Imperial Fists lists, more so than Iron Hands, I'm worried, because the vibro cannons are vehicles, weirdly. And despite having slight hovering things on their bases, they don't have fly, so they can be wrapped very easily. And against vehicles, against Imperial Fists, obviously they get a lot of they get damage too with a lot of their stuff, and they can just go through them in no time. Marines are a tough matchup for anyone at the moment. I think it's fair to say. And I kind of know if I fight the right Marine list that goes first, I don't think I can win. But I kind of felt with a lot of lists ideas I had in mind, I wasn't sure I could win if I could go second against Marines. So I just wanted to build a list that won if it went first, and if I can go 50% against Marines, then hooray.
You've also got to factor in the fact that Euan generally, when he's at tournaments, doesn't go second.
Yeah, I went to LGT. I can't remember if I've said this on the podcast before, but I went to LGC and went first in all 5 games there. So I was. So yeah, I can't complain.
With Chaos Knights as well. With
thermal
cannons.
Yeah. Oh, that was. Oh, I've cursed myself now. I'm going to go last in every second one.
So this is the list you're taking to the Surrey Championship, right?
Yes. In fact, not only that, I've got 2 other tournaments in back to back after that, and I'm probably my plan is to play this list for all 3 of them. I might switch up on the 3rd one if I'm bored shitless of playing it, and then I'm probably going to be playing something else after. Gene Stealer Cult have had my eye for a while, so I'm going to start building up on them, because I've got a small force of them from 7th really, which I never really used in 8. I haven't used them in 8 since the Codex came out. I used them in the Index days, but
that's interesting because they took a bit of a hit, didn't they, in the FAQ?
Yeah, it's just the list has been going quite well, and I've kind of been enjoying it because of that. But it is a very different style to lists I've been running in the past. But it's got some mobility tricks, it's got some screening tricks, and I'm really glad I've had to play a more defensive style of list compared to what I was used to, which was a very aggressive infantry-based chaos list. So having a sort of tank-based shooting list, for lack of a better thing, has been good, and seeing the challenge from the other way. But I do want to get back to that mobility and lots of tricks list, which this list probably doesn't have a lot of. And if it has that bad first turn where they go first and I whiff my shooting phase, then I'm in such a horrible position. But yeah, that's the thing. I've tried to do as much to increase my strengths with this list as I can.
Yep.
And there's a thought about trying to minimize its weakness. So a lot of people try and hide. That's why I've got two night spinners. That's why I've got one D cannon as well, just to try and pick off some tank that's trying to get close. Or I was having a lot of problems with characters in general with Eldar. A lot of their shooting doesn't have that sort of ignore line of sight, or does but doesn't have it in an effective way. So I had a lot of characters that would sort of get sort of within sort of 15 or so away where I couldn't couldn't see them, and then charge me next turn. So having that one thing that's got 2 shots on average with D6 damage with AP4, just to try and threaten something like that, or Centurions that get a bit close. As I said, if I go second against a big heavy Imperial Fierce list in particular, or against a Centurion heavy Raven Guard list, I might just get effectively tabled or effectively lose the game on the spot. But you can't build a list for everything, and this list has got a goal in mind to shoot shit, and it's going to try and do that.
It's such a shame that the support weapons don't have flight. One,
It's-
for the obvious reason of them getting tied up, but
and also the
I
buildings.
I think that your list would be far stronger, and even in some cases wouldn't mind going second if you could just move and ignore terrain, because you could just hide and then move forward, and like you're re-rolling a hit and re-rolling a wound anyway. So
Yeah, I do
like,
move the cannons a lot. When I'm playing at someone that does know what they're expecting, they do tend to try and at least move corners. So I view a lot of my stuff, especially the Wraith Lords, as hitting on 4s,
yeah,
because I'm prepared to move them, and I kind of think if I've got 2 shots hitting on 4s, one of them should hit normally, and then I've got a re-roll to try and get that second hit. So I kind of end up with 75% accuracy anyway.
yeah,
So I've got a good chance of getting 2 hits still.
yeah. And also you've got 9 of them, so I think in any deployment you can basically go from one side to the other.
Yeah, I
And-
try not to get greedy and get all 9 on a target, because people go and hide on the other flank, obviously.
Yeah,
And I'm prepared that I'll get 2 or maybe 3 if I'm lucky with those bonuses to wound, especially the top tier ones, against armies that can hide. And if I'm playing against something like knights, which will struggle to hide, then I can get a bit greedy and try and put things on one thing, or if there's not a lot of terrain on the table.
yeah.
I
think
and if
like,
sorry.
going back to the it's a weird way of being resilient with the support weapons, in that like it's 3 squads of 3, but they act as their own separate unit when they're deployed. So actually, if you're going up against a knight player, you know they're going to have to put their entire Avenger Gatling cannon into 1.
Yeah, and you just
So
need
it's not really
one
a-
to roll,
yeah.
one to roll slightly poor, and it's still alive. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So it is very good against that. And also, what caught me out as well when we played was because you've got like the mobility of the Wraith Lords, of them just sort of moving almost like independent, and because of the Quaroft World trait that you're using, as you said, you don't need Doom or anything like that, so that basically each unit is just dependent.
yes,
Like, it
there's
doesn't
no
need any support at all. So your Wraith Lords can just go off in any direction, and all of a sudden, like I know in our game when I was trying to hide my Paladins, it was like, well, my Wraith Lord over on this side of the table can see you, and then if I go the other way, then this Wraith Lord can see me. So it's just like, even
I have
though you've only got a couple of line of sight ignoring weapons, it's still very difficult to actually sort of screen out, because you know you're not moving up or around the board like a castle. It's just everything's independent of itself.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. That you think of, there's a couple of these sort of orbital bombardment style weapons. Necrons obviously have the best one with their what are their flyers called? Doom.
Doom Scythes.
Yeah, Doom Scythes, and their stratagem that sort of picks a point and nukes it. And this army tends to spread very thin rather than very sort of in a bubble, as it were, because apart from making sure I'm within 18 or so of the Psykers, who've got pretty good movement, the Farseer in particular typically takes the move 12 and have Fly Relic. Everything is very much self-contained. I'm not like a Marine chapter that tends to bubble around a chapter master.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, it's a really,
So-
it's a really good like way to build the army.
Yeah. So going from one Eldar to another, do you want to remind
Yep.
everyone of your list, Nathan?
Yeah. So this has gone through a few changes, and it will go through a massive change probably after we've done the tournament. I don't now at this point I don't have time to make the change to it. So it's a dual battalion and a spearhead. So in my first battalion, I'm running it as Ulthway. I've got a Autarch Skyrunner. We can't take legends to this tournament, so he is just like a normal Autarch Skyrunner now. So he can only take one weapon. So he's got a laser lance and his twin shuriken catapult.
They're rubbish, aren't they? The regular one.
I haven't found him too bad. He can still move up quite far and kill a character quite easily with the laser lance in shooting and combat. In this list, I like having an Autarch that can fly because there's a couple of units that in the Ulthway craft world that really benefit from having reroll ones. And then obviously the CP farming, because this list is actually very CP heavy, which I've found out over a few games. I've got enough CP to make it work for like the first 3 or 4 turns, and then after that I'm just out.
It's because you're having to buff this Seer Council.
Yeah, it's not so much having to buff them; it's using the move again. So, but yeah, I'll get into that in a sec. So yeah, I've just got an Autarch Skyrunner. Then I've got Eldrad. It'd be stupid to have an Ulthway detachment without Eldrad. So I'm running him with Smite. So I haven't changed the Smite. He's got Guide, Doom, and Fortune. Then I've got a Warlock Skyrunner, who is at the moment my Warlord, but we don't have to declare our traits or anything for the tournament now.
No,
So
it's each battle round, isn't it?
Each game. So in my list, I'm probably going to run it this way anyway, because I think this is the optimal loadout for this with the Warlord traits and relics. So he is my Warlord, and he probably will be for most games. I've replaced his Smite with Ghost Walk. So that's the +2 to charge. He has Protect and Jinx, which is mainly for Protect rather than Jinx. He's just got a Witchblade, Twin Shuriken Catapult, Shuriken Pistol. His Warlord trait is Seer of the Shifting Vector, so he gets a free reroll for the hit. Yeah, for the hit roll, wound roll, saving throw, psychic, or deny.
Yeah.
So Protect is second, probably the second most important power to get off in this list. Then I've got, for my troops for that battalion, I've got a 20-man unit of Guardian Defenders, which most of the time I'm going to be deep striking. I do have 2 heavy weapons platforms in there, both of them are shuriken cannons, just to tank some wounds when they come down. I've got 2 units of Rangers, which for the most part I deep strike every time. They're just my guys that come down, hold objectives, and potentially snipe characters. They're quite good as Ulthway. I really I undervalued them at first because I just sort of put them in there I thought that they were going to be a good kind of tech choice to have some deep striking stuff, but actually with their innate -1 to hit and +2 to save when they're in cover and Ulthway, they're actually really tanky. Yeah, they're really annoying to get rid of. And then I've got 3 Wave Serpents. At the moment, I'm running them with Twin Shuriken Catapults, Twin Star Cannons, with the targeting matrix, so they ignore the moving and shooting heavy weapons on the closest target. Which I haven't actually come up against Marines yet in my test games. So I've played 4 test games with this list, and I've won all 4 of them. But none of them have been against Marines.
Star cannons are meant to be really good intercessor killers. So if you do come up against the Marine list, then I can imagine you'll probably take a lot of them out.
Yeah.
Potentially.
So I'm hoping that's a good tech choice at the moment.
Mm.
That's just them. They're kind of. I was speaking to Dennis about them today. Wave Serpents are just gross.
They're like
So
one of the best
good.
units that Eldar
They're-
have, aren't they?
They're
They're
really
so-
tough
Yeah.
to kill. That
very
minus
nice,
one
yeah.
damage, which is becoming more popular, worryingly.
Yeah.
Grey Knights and Marines and things have access to it in various forms these days.
Mm.
Or Grey Knights will have access to it. The book's not quite out yet. Yeah, it's so powerful. And
I was saying saying to Dennis earlier, because I'm running them as Ulfway, obviously I don't have to pay for the Spirit Stones, which you might do, you might not do, but having Spirit Stones or running them as Ulfway essentially gives them like 2.5 more wounds, like mathematically, because they've got 13 wounds anyway. So if you're rolling for 13 feel no pains, you're going to save like 2.5 of them.
Yeah.
So they've actually got like 15 and a half wounds. You can kind of so if you're shooting guns at them that are flat 2 damage, they've actually got like 31 wounds.
yeah, it's
Just crazy.
Taking off a wound with Serpent Shield as well, so you reduce that, don't you? So you're only taking this if it's a 2 damage weapon, then
Yeah,
you just
so
put the one down,
yeah,
can't you?
so if someone was shooting like autocannons at you, you've basically got double the wounds.
or vibro
Yeah.
cannons, to take a random example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You haven't designed your list just to beat my list, have you?
I haven't, but it seems like I have.
Because to be honest, if we play each other, I might just concede. We can go have a pint.
Well, I've been so tempted to run like a Wave Serpent spammy list, like 6 or 7 Wave Serpents, and just
They don't do a lot of damage for their points. Is the only counter argument to them. I think if you're going for transport spam, Venoms probably do it better in Dark Eldar. Very different style of list, but I think the Wave Serpent in my list is as 150 points, and when you consider a Falcon can have better guns for about 110, 120 points, because you can give it sort of 3 big guns for about the same thing as a Wave Serpent with star cannons, and it's a huge damage increase for less points. But the Wave Serpent, I still wouldn't drop because it's such a good unit to get into the middle and just be a pain.
Yeah.
And 3 of them is really tough to kill at range. If you're a melee army, then the Serpent Shield is less of a bother. If you're a melee army with a big damage thing as well, because if you go back to that sort of a lot of the old Horde lists, like if you think of something even like Orcs, Orc boys are going to really struggle to kill a Wave Serpent in a round or 2 of combat, even if they've got a fist in the group, because a lot of them are wounding on 5s and you've got a 3-up save and all this stuff, and you've got a lot of inbuilt wounds, so they're still a really tanky unit.
Yeah. All in all, like they've just been great, and so that's the Wave Serpent. That's the Ulfway Battalion as well. So I've just taken Ulfway because I actually need all the powers that Eldrad has, so I can't actually take just a normal Farseer. If I was taking a normal Farseer, I'd need 2 of them, which I don't have the points to do. So that's why it's Ulfway, and then obviously Ulfway gives me access to cheaper Wave Serpents if you want to run them with the Spirit Stones, and it also gives you a better Guardian Bomb. So that's why that's Ulfway. My second battalion is Bealtan. So the reason why it's Bealtan is for a couple of reasons. The main reason is my first HQ is just a normal Warlock on foot. His power is Crushing Orb and Quicken, Restrain.
Which one's Crushing Orb? Sorry.
It's you roll 3 dice and they take more wounds.
Okay, so you've upgraded this much to that.
Basically, yeah.
I might have to copy that.
It's just good because, so the reason why I'm taking Bealtan is because Bealtan's relic is a reroll failed psychic tests. So now I have Eldrad, who gets +1 for every single time he casts, as well as Seer Counseling with him. So he's basically, when you get up to me casting Doom on his third power, he's +3 to cast.
I thought it was just +1 if you got a psychic power off.
No, it's every time you pass a psychic test, you get +1 with Eldrad.
Okay.
So yeah, let me just have a look at his rule. Yep, Spirit Link. Whenever you pass a psychic test for Eldrad, you can add 1 to the next psychic test you take for him.
Okay, but that doesn't stack. So then you get +1 for the next one, so you didn't get +1, +2.
Oh, I see.
But he's still a really, really reliable caster because you're getting that +1, you're getting +1 from Seer Council if you're using it on him, inbuilt to his natural rerolls anyway, and the fact that he and other Farseer equivalents essentially ignore perils a lot of the time, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been playing that wrong. It only really mattered in a couple of times, maybe, because the general thing that I did was Fortune, Guide, Doom, pay 1 CP for Smite. So
I think you just do Smite first, and then the rest is still going off reliably.
Yeah, yeah. So it was mainly for the Super Smite.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. But basically, so I've got Eldrad. He's going to be +2 most of the time because of Seer Council and that. And then obviously he gets his free reroll anyway for being Farseer. Then my Warlock Skyrunner, who's in the Orthway detachment, gets a free reroll for the Psychic Test as well for getting Protect off. And then now my Biltan, my first Warlock, gets a reroll Psychic Test for Quicken, which are basically the 2 main powers that need to go off is Protect and Quicken. So yeah, that's them, and then he's got Crushing Orb just because it's much better than Smite or Destructor. So and
yeah, because Warlocks only have to damage 1 Smite, don't they? At a reduced range. So
yeah, and this can target characters as well. Well, it
does
target characters, so it's pick a visible character within 18.
Okay, so you can you use it on non-characters?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, because he's got Quicken, most of the time I've found in the games that he only uses it once, and that's if I don't deep strike the Seer Council. So having Crushing Orb is quite good just to keep firing out those mortal wounds again.
Yeah, I found very similar that whenever I've been using Eldar, Quicken almost goes used once in the rest of the game. The caster's smiting or something instead, but that use of it is so crucial that you don't want to give it up.
Yeah, so it's you use a Spirit Seer, don't you?
Yes, and I've been toying around with which caster has which powers because I've got a lot of things I want to get that +1 on, and it's matchup dependent whether I want to have kind of. I tend to either want Quicken or Ghost Walk with my list.
Yep.
And if I want Ghost Walk, I really want that +1 to cast, so I sometimes swap out my Farseer Smite so I can get him with a +1. And then I can have my Warlock casting Protect, which I'll probably want to cast in addition. If I'm not deep striking something, and I'm probably putting Quicken on the Spirit Seer and then keeping his Smite and keeping the Farseer Smite, so I could just cast that and go up, because +2 to charge if you're not coming out of Deep Strike is very nice, but not as critical as if you're going from Deep Strike.
Yeah. So yeah, basically the reason why I'm using Warlocks as well is because of Seer Council. So actually thinking about it now, I could probably make my next HQ a Spirit Seer rather than a Warlock, because it's another Warlock on. I've replaced his Smite with Focus Will, which is +2 to cast on a character. Because I've kind of realised that the -1s don't really do that much with like everyone's reroll failed hits getting reworded into reroll hits. Doesn't
Yeah.
make as big of a difference now.
Yeah, that's why I've dropped all the flowers from my Eldar list.
Yeah, so I'm thinking
Plus,
maybe
I
I'll
hate
go for
flowers as
something
a
else.
concept, but there we are.
So I've given him focus wheel because depending on the matchup, I can still get Eldrad to +4 anyway with focus wheel. So which ensures that basically everything that I need to go off goes off unless I roll like 3 into 3 into 3 into 3 or something stupid like that.
Hmm.
So,
And when it happens, it'll be glorious to see the implosion.
so then I've got just 3 troops choices just to make out the Biltan battalion. So I've got 3 units of Dire Avengers, which go well in Biltan because they're re-rolling 1s innately, so they don't really need any support apart from like Doom and stuff. I've replaced the Exarch power with Blade Storm, so 6s explode, and the Exarch has twin Avenger Shuriken catapults, so it's 12 shots per unit. They're just really good. They've been really good in every game I've used them in.
Yeah, I've run my Avengers the same way, and they're just nice at getting rid of a chaff unit. They can put some wounds on something bigger with their shuriken if needed.
Mhm.
And I always try to find the problem that they come out, shoot something up quite well, and then get horribly annihilated.
Yeah. That happened in my last game. Not so much the other couple of games. They seem to sort of survive, but that's probably because other people have more things to worry about.
Mm.
So yeah, that's my Biltan battalion. Then I've got a spearhead, which I'm running as a custom craft world. So I am using Hail of Doom. So shuriken weapons get AP -1,
Mhm.
and that doesn't affect the rending on them either. So 6s are still AP -3. It doesn't stack. And then I'm also taking Savage Blades, so that's just reroll 1s in the fight phase. I tried out a few, like Hail of Doom is just great on the Seer Council. I tried out a couple of other ones, like I tried the +1 to charge, which I didn't really find much utility for.
No, again, I've used that one a couple of times, not so much with this list, but with other Eldar lists in the past. And it feels like something you want a specific detachment for that's going to deep strike everything.
Yep.
It's a lot of Shining Spears and stuff. If it's just a unit here or there, it's mediocre.
Yeah. I've tried the +1 to psychic tests as well, which was nice, but I just felt like I needed more utility in other areas. Basically, my previous iteration of this list, the Autarch, was actually part of the this detachment because I'm spending a CP to make it the Windrider host. So he is affected by that as well. Which means that the Seer Council, which I'll go on to in a minute, gets reroll 1s if he's near, which kind of plugs the gap of them not having any rerolls in combat. But then I found that actually the reroll 1s is much better suited to being in the Ulthway detachment for him to basically shoot up the board to give the Guardians reroll 1s and also the Wave Serpents. So I can't remember what one it's called, but it's the one where if you have a model or if a model is on an objective, then the whole unit gets +1 attack, which is very situational. When the situation comes up, it's very powerful, but most of the time I'm finding that I'm overkilling everything anyway with them in combat. So yeah, that's previously what I run. Now I'm just running Savage Blades just to give them a reroll 1, which is good with their psychic power. So with the Seer Council psychic power anyway, which I'll go on to next.
Hunters of Ancient Relics is the one I think you think of. Add 1 to attack characteristics of models with this attribute while their unit is within 3 of any objective markers.
Yeah, so if one of them's on the objective, then the whole every model in the unit gets +1 attack.
Which is quite nice.
Which is,
But
it is really nice, yeah. You're on average, I think, with my guys, with the Seer Council, you're looking at like 27 attacks, because you're probably going to have one trailing back or something. So yeah, I am making this the Wind Rider host. This is kind of where the meat of the list is. The reason I'm making it a Wind Rider host is because of the 2 CP stratagem, which allows me to move again and advance after I fight. So that's before the opponent's fought, basically. So most of the time when I've got in, I've killed everything that I've touched. Council. But in the case where you go up against something and you don't kill what you're attacking, then you can retreat before they even get to attack. So, which is very powerful. It's very like old Yunari.
yeah, it's because I think we we talked about this unit on episode 1, episode 2, and we were sort of mathing out that roughly speaking, it kills a knight in a turn of combat.
Yeah, you can kill with shooting and combat. You can kill 2 knights a turn with the Seer Council.
So yeah, there aren't a lot of units in the game that are going to stand up to that kind of assault for a turn, and especially units that are going to still present a credible threat to the council.
Yeah, Stuart, they really kind of first turn yesterday in a game that I had against Stuart. So Stuart runs a very heavy, shooting heavy Tyrannid army, which is really good. Like, it's a really good army, and I think it takes quite a lot of people by surprise. He uses a lot of the stuff from Psychic Awakening as well that's buffed the big creatures. So he has a 6-man unit of Hive Guard. He has a full unit of warriors, so a 9-man unit of warriors, and then he has like Tyrannofex and Exocrines, and yeah, just a lot of shooting. Well, I got first turn yesterday, and my Conclave killed 2 units of Termagants, the full unit of warriors, and 5 of the 6 Hive Guard turn 1. just the Conclave.
That is nasty.
Yeah, and then they retreated back and he couldn't see them. So yeah, let's go on to the Seer Council. So they've got a few special rules. Yeah, I was talking about the Wind Rider host. So you've got the strat to move and advance straight after your unit fights. Now, the reason why it's a really powerful stratagem, but the reason why it haven't really come up since Vigilus came out is because it doesn't affect aspect warriors. So you can't take Shining Spears in a Wind Rider host detachment, or they don't get affected by the Wind Rider host attachment. You can use it on what are the shooty bikes called?
Wind Riders.
Wind Riders, yeah, Wind Riders. That makes sense because it's Wind Rider host. You can use it on Wind Riders, but they don't have any close combat.
Yeah, they've got 1 strength, 3 attack each, I think it is. So
yeah,
hooray!
Yeah. So yeah, not very good with that. A few people did, when you could take an autarch with legends, they did make use of that because it was very good on an autarch that had a fusion gun and a laser lance or a nova lance and running the Siam Han. So you could like advance up the board with Siam Han, still charge and reroll charges, and before you did that, you would put your laser lance and a fusion gun into one character, kill them, and then you would charge into another character and kill that, and then you would just retreat again. So I've seen a couple of people doing that, but generally those were the only 2 units you could do that with. Now with the Seer Council, they're not aspect warriors, so they're a very expensive unit, which has come down after chapter approved, which is really good. So
how much is it for the unit these days?
It's if you're I don't see why you would run them without Singing Spears, but with Singing Spears, it's 550
Woo.
for a max unit. It was 650, so they've come down by 100 points. I was planning on running them when they were 650, so I've had the. I didn't steal this from Nick Nanavati.
I think that's the thing. Both of us had our list ideas kind of before they really took off in the meta. Not that they have massively, but they've been. We were both early adopters of them.
Yeah. So I was going to run this before the
Chapter approved.
before they were reduced in points. Chapter approved has basically just made me do a little bit of a shuffle, and I can fit another Wave Serpent in, which is really good. So yeah, it's 550 points. I've equipped them all with Singing Spears, so they're basically witch weapons that you can shoot. So you get the standard sort of witch weapon profile, which is there's no strength because it auto wounds everything on 2s. There's no AP and it's damage D3. So with the throwing, it's one shot and it's 12-inch range. So they've all got twin shuriken catapults. So the unit is putting out 40 shuriken shots and 10 basically shots with the spears. In combat, they've got 2 attacks each, so it's 20 attacks. Same kind of thing. It's the same profile. So they've got a couple of different rules. So interestingly, they don't have the character keyword. So they get the Ride the Wind ability. So when they advance, they add 6 instead of rolling for it. So before I was running them as Siam Han, so this actually made a little bit of a difference. Where you could advance and charge, but I've found that I haven't even needed that. Having a 32-inch move with Quicken seems to be more than enough. So
yeah, because when you consider you charge sort of 7-8 or whatever as well, then if someone's 41 inches away from you, you're still in a reasonable threat range.
Yeah, the other thing is as well that I'll go into a little bit more like after I've gone through the list, is that having advance and charge doesn't make a difference because it doesn't make a difference whether I go first or second. I don't know whether you can hear that noise.
I heard it, but it was only very brief in the background.
It's gone now. So because if I go first, I'll just frontline with them, in which case 32 inches is going to get me to basically the back of the board, even if it's hammer and anvil, right? And if I go second, well, then I'm just going to deep strike them and ghost walk charge them on turn 2. So having the advance and charge doesn't really matter. But they've got the extra movement if you need it. It's especially relevant for the retreat because you can 22 inches to retreat is quite a lot, and it almost kind of ensures that you get them all into a building. So, which is really good. They've got rune armor, so they've got 4-up invulnerable. So they've got the conclave rule. So this is basically it's like a damage table that gets better the more models are in the unit. So if the unit has 7 to 10 models, which mine does, it has 10, they can cast 3 powers and they can deny 3. They know 2 powers from Runes of Battle and they know 1 power from Runes of Fortune. So the 2 powers from Runes of Battle is they've got Enhanced Drain. So Enhance is just to buff them up in the fight phase so that they hit on 2s. So it would be 2s re-rolling 1s and then 2s to wound everything. And then I've given them Protect and Jinx, so they will be the ones that are jinxing stuff that they're going up to. Or they can protect themselves if they really need to. Then I haven't replace their smite because their destructor has a different rule to normal. So it's still only a range of 9 inches instead of 18. However, you then get rules depending on the conclave rule. So if you have between 1 and 3 in the unit, then it only deals 1 mortal wound. If you have between 4 and 6, then it deals D3. If you have between 7 and 10, it always deals D6 mortal wounds. So that combined with
levels.
yeah, so that combined with Eldrad's chances of Super Smite going off, it actually gives you a reasonable chance of having 2 Super Smites going off, which is really good. In one game against James, who was playing with Orcs, I think it's a Dakajet, which has 12 wounds, and to his turn 1, he flew a Dakajet over to my castle, so I had already gone in with the Seer Council and then come back out again. So my Seer Council were in a building where my castle was with Eldrad and the Warlocks and whatever. In my turn 2, I put the Seer Council and Eldrad and got Super Smites on both into the Dakajet and rolled 6s for both and just killed it in Psychic. So it's very good having 2 reliable D6 damage smites. So yeah, that's their psychic powers. Yeah, so they've got shuriken pistols. I've spoken about the spears. So the spears are basically just witch blades in melee, but they can shoot them, which is 12 inches. Assault 1, strength 9, but it always wounds on a 2 anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And then D3 damage, and then they've all got twin shuriken catapults, so they're putting out 40 shots as well, which would be at AP -1 because of the custom craft world.
Mhm.
So that's basically the conclave. You might be able to see where I'm like, if you're listening, you might be able to see where I'm kind of getting with, especially with the like retreating and stuff like that, where I'm going with this list. Just to flesh out the spearhead, I've then got 3 support weapons, which are all Shadow Weavers. So basically shuriken cannon mortars with 48-inch range and D6 shots. So they really haven't done a lot at all, and they're actually what I'm going to be swapping out. So
Do you know what you're put? Oh yeah, you're putting up at the Guardian Defend.
yeah,
No,
Storm Guard.
sorry, that's the one.
Yeah, so I've already got 6 HQs, so I don't need to pay another tax for running a triple battalion HQ wise. The only thing I'm missing is just the troops. So I've kind of figured that although the Autarch Skyrunner used to be really nice, then I carried on running it just with the Laser Lance, and although it is good, I think I'd get more use out of a Skyrunner, out of a Autarch with wings. So I save about 15 points there on taking a Autarch with wings instead of a Skyrunner. And then basically, if I drop one of the Guardian Defenders platforms, the Shuriken Cannon platform, I can then fit in 3 8-man units of Storm Guardians to make another battalion. So that's probably what I'm going to do, to be honest. So what I would probably do is I'd probably just I'd probably foot slog the Dire Avengers up the board and then just keep the Storm Guardians and the Wave Serpents, because most of the time the Wave Serpents are just shooting up the board anyway, just to apply pressure and sort of get in people's faces and stuff.
Old school runner rush.
Yep. So yeah, then in the new list, the Storm Guardians would then obviously just pile out and tag stuff, tie stuff up, and just generally be annoying.
Yeah, because they don't do a lot of damage, even if you chucked all the buffs on them in the world.
Yeah. The only thing to note is that you can. So I'm reluctant to do it in this because so many turn. on just random stuff. So like I've either got so I'm basically spending 2 CP every turn with the Skyrunners unless there's no threat of getting countercharged and I've got a unit that I can tie up, like a Lehman Russ or something like that I can just sit there and not get shot and then not have to worry about stuff charging into me. So generally they'll be going in, getting quickened in on the first turn, and I'll be spending 2 CP to get out of there and then basically just rinse and repeat every turn. If I go second, then I'm going to be paying 1 CP to deep strike the defender bomb, and then I'm going to pay 2 more CP to deep strike the Seer Council. So in essence, I'm still paying 2 CP on turn 1
Keep them protected.
to keep them protected. And then I've got 1 CP for Seer Council, another CP if I want to make Eldrad cast a 4th power, and then basically 1 CP when the Guardian Defenders come down for Discipline of the Black Guardians to give them +1 to hit, because they're all the way.
Yeah, and then they're so reliable that can do a lot of damage to loads of different unit types.
Yeah, you can sort of like you can put out sort of like 16 to 18 like -3 damage shots onto a knight with Doom on it.
Yeah, that's very scary.
Yeah. So yeah, I really rate them. But yeah, it's very, very CP hungry. But then there's a few other stratagems that I would like to look into using, like if I made a mistake in the game yesterday, although I won it quite sort of. There were some really bad balls, but I would say I won it quite comfortably. It was like 30. It was like 34 or 36 to 13, I think it was, and we were playing ITC as well. But I put all of the buffs, all of the defensive buffs on the Conclave, which was really stupid because I knew exactly what I was going to be shooting at and then charging into. So after I did the Quicken, which is generally the last power, because obviously after that, then they're probably going to be out of range of powers. After I did the Quicken, I was like, I should have measured 22 inches to retreat back, like before doing all the powers, because then after I fought and then retreated, I realised that actually I can just hide them again. And my opponent didn't have any line of sight ignoring shooting, so he wouldn't have been able to shoot them anyway. So there was no point in protecting them and fortuning them and etc. etc. So actually, if that's a plausible way of doing it in every game, which if you're going to like an ITC tournament or using decent terrain, it should be, if you're doing that, actually having some Storm Guardians that you can do that on is quite good, because you can spend 1 CP to give them a 4-up invuln and then buff that to a 3-up with Protect, and then give them Fortune for 5-up Feel No Pain, and
just a really annoying unit to kill, especially if it's on a critical objective.
Yeah, exactly. So then suddenly, like, your 48-point unit is about as tanky as a unit of Plague Bearers. So, which is something that I hadn't considered. So it's something that I'd thought about for the Guardian Defenders, but it wasn't something that I'd thought about when the strategy was retreating the Seer Council. So I spent so much time like buffing them and making sure I had the rerolls and everything, and like on them for me to just kill everything that I wanted to kill and then just retreat 22 inches back into a building, and then I couldn't be shot anyway. So something that I need to be wary of. But yeah, that's basically how my list works. And like I said, I've played 4 games with it now, and it's been really good in every single one of them. So I'm really, really happy with it, apart from the support weapons, which haven't done anything at all.
I found with my Night Spinners, which do a similar role to the support platforms in your list, that there are some matchups where they're quite mediocre and they don't seem to do a lot. And then there are some where they really, really pull their weight. Again, very different list designs. In fact, I think for the same faction, I think our lists are about as polar opposite as they could be.
Yeah.
Mine has lots of small, self-contained shooter units. Yours is sort of... Your core is your big, super buff, super agile, moving back and forwards unit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the roles of our line of sight, non-line of sight weaponry is a bit different. But
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like I took those to sort of get at the things that I didn't think I could get at, but actually I can, because I've got the Seer Council, which is super maneuverable. But I've also got the Wave Serpents and deep striking and everything like that as well. Like the Wave Serpents move 16 inches.
yeah, I
fly,
still get
so-
surprised by that, and
Yeah, and they fly. So actually, I'm not playing a static list, am I? I'm playing a very maneuverable list. So I shouldn't really have an instance where there's something at the back of the map that I actually cannot get to, unless it's like wrapped in like 200 termagants or like 150 plague bearers or something like that. Or something stupid. And
if something's wrapped like that, then chances are you can sit out of 4 or 5
Yeah.
objectives and win that way. So
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was a good idea. I think I had the right idea with them. I just don't think they like
the niche they
don't-
cover isn't the niche you need covered.
yeah, exactly. So I think actually just having some annoying units to just do what I need to, it would be better. Because as well, like I was talking at the start, I don't have any units apart from these that can stay at the back. I don't really want to keep my Dire Avengers at the back because I know how much damage they can do. The same with like obviously the Rangers. I could keep one of them on the board like a backfield objective, but they're much better at deep striking and being annoying.
Yeah,
to get rid
I
of
find that
them.
with mine as well. Their values they can deep strike onto an objective more so
Yeah.
than their 5 sniper shots.
Yeah, exactly. So I really, really don't have anything that wants to sit at the back apart from them. And most of the time because they're not like a unit that's common, like especially pre like Psychic Awakening. Yeah, so like you didn't really see the support weapons pre Psychic Awakening. So when people go, oh, what can that do? And I'm like, well, it's a Shuriken Cannon Mortar that does D6 shots and it has 48-inch range, and they're just like, okay, well, I'm just going to deploy everything out of range of it.
Hmm.
In which
Or everything
case,
valuable out of range of it, as it were.
yeah, exactly. So in which case they don't do anything, which is what they've done in all 4 games that I've played with them. So
I mean, still creating distance is not an unvaluable thing, but
it's not.
But if you want to be close to them anyway, then yeah.
Yeah. And actually, like, if I had more like troops, I'd be more inclined to like leave that unit of Dire Avengers on the backfield, like defending an objective, because I've got like 24 Storm Guardians flying up the board inside Wave Serpents to put pressure on people instead. So I'm definitely going to give it a go. The main thing is the CP as well, because obviously I'll be running triple battalion in that list, so I'll have 18 to play with, which means that I can do the give a 4-up invuln to something and cast the extra psychic power and more rerolls and lightning fast reactions and all of that stuff. So, which at the moment I thought I had a lot of CP with 14, but actually I don't.
I have 10 and I barely get through them. But again, very different list, very different, very different style. All of mine go on psychic, but I don't have. There's not a lot of point using a -1 to hit on a grav platform, as it were.
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
I don't think you even can, but as a theoretical example. But yeah, so 3 very different lists, 2 very diametrically opposed lists. So what do you, just quickly, I think, what do you think your best matchup is, both of you, and what do you think your worst matchup is? So, so game 1, turn 1. Let's say this is your fantasy scenario. You can choose whether to go first or second. Your opponent's deployed poorly, as you want. What is your ideal thing to face, and what's your worst thing to face?
Oh, I'll go first quickly. Okay, so I'll start off with my worst matchups. I believe will be an Imperial Fist mirror match, because I believe whoever goes first, whoever goes first will win, because obviously of the damage output they can put to vehicles. And the same as Iron Hands as well. I think if I came up against Iron Hands, I think that would be a bad one if they go first. And something like Nathan's list, the Seer Council, if he gets that first turn charge off, wraps all my stuff up, that could be quite tricky. So yeah, best match, favourable matchups would probably be, I don't know, to be quite honest. I've not really thought about it. Depends. I mean,
I'd have thought guard would be a really good matchup for you, because you've got you get your +1 damage against a lot of their tanks, and their infantry just falls apart to you.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of, I'll say, easy matchups. It's all list dependent, really. I think I'm just really for example, for this tournament coming up, I'm just thinking of my hard ones, because, like I said, I've only played Fists like twice, and this will be like my kind of like third time. This will be my proper time. Like I say, it's my proper time playing these, so I can't really, I don't really have
I think
a solid opinion of what I'd be good against. But I have a lot of ideas of what I'd be bad against. Well, not bad against, would be tough.
You'd be really, I think you'd be really good against knights, if anyone brings knights, just because of you just got so much damage against them, and yeah, I think
I'm quite
I would
wary of
be.
combat armies. Like Nids might be quite, but it's all turn 1 variant. I mean, if I get turn 1 and like against any army, I'd be quite confident. But if I lose out on turn 1, especially against something like Nids or something that's quite combat-y that can get like first turn charges off, then
Yeah,
I'll be
or
quite,
even
worried.
like technical armies like Gene Steel, Occult, Raven Guard.
Yeah.
Especially with like assault centurions, because you can't shoot them, because they're just going to come down and flame you and hurricane bolt you, and then charge into your vehicles and multi-wound stuff with their siege drill things.
Yeah, Raven Guard Centurions are nasty. Same as sort of like White Scars as well, but they're sort of more potent from around, I would say, like turn 3 onwards, when they can really sort of like shine.
Yeah, the thing about White Scars is that they can only come in on the board edge, so
it's easy to screen them out.
If you screen right, then you'll be okay.
It's easier to
put it this way: I was able to screen against White Scars with my LGT list, with 3 Chaos Spawn doing the job. And for reference, that army was Araman, 3 Spawn, 3 Chaos Knights, 3 Discordants, and I was able to screen against White Scars.
Yeah. I think if you're like against White Scars, it becomes a lot easier depending on what list you're playing as well. Like if you're playing an elite army, then it's a lot easier, because you could even just go straight to the middle of the map, and then all of a sudden they just can't do anything.
Yeah.
So I'd be a little bit wary about Tau as well with Imperial Fists, because none of your stuff really affects them. Like all of their stuff is battle suits; they're not vehicles.
Yeah, because they haven't got the vehicle keyword, have they?
Yeah.
No. And obviously, they're like, even with all the shooting power I have, it's still hard for any army, even Iron Hands these days, to match the shooting power of Tau, because they're still very, very strong.
And drones is a
Wow.
very, very powerful mechanic.
Yeah.
Very frustrating.
Yeah.
I'd
Especially if
like
you're-
to see it changed in future, personally,
Yeah.
but there we are.
Especially if you're running if some people these days now running like 40 drones, which is an absolute nightmare to chew through.
Yeah.
So that's something you've got to be sort of. I'd be
Yeah.
quite.
Do you know what
worried
the
about.
do you know what the counter to drones is?
Artillery.
Grey Knights.
Why Grey Knights in particular?
Purge Soul.
What's
You
Purge
can get
Soul?
Purge Soul's a psychic power that it goes. I believe it goes off on a 6, and then you have a roll off. You add your leaderships together, and the person takes mortal wounds. They take the mortal wound difference.
Hmm.
So drones are leadership 6, and you can get Grey Knight character to leadership 12. So they also
They're
fail
taking
anyway.
D6. Sorry, they're taking
Yeah.
6 plus D6 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
That is
So
not bad.
You just cast that every turn, and then you just wipe them all out.
Mm.
And also,
Grey Knights OP, please nerf.
Night Lords are quite good against Tau now as well,
Hmm.
because of all their new stuff. So they can lock things in combat so that they can't actually
Yeah.
retreat, and then ignore Overwatch, and also
You've got to
reduce.
get into that combat first, which is still.
Yeah, reduce leadership, deny auras. So I was speaking to Michael a couple of weeks ago when he borrowed my Red Corsairs, and he was saying that like whether he went up against someone or whether he was just like theory crafting, he was saying like how amazing it is for Night Lords to just be able to shut down like Carrion in Tau.
Yeah.
So like they call Carrion or something, and then you just go nah. or even like Montcar would be even worse, because like most of the time when you're Tau and you're using Montcar, you're relying on that to get into range or something. So as soon as they use it and you just go, no, you're not using it, then they're screwed.
Hmm.
So Nathan, best matchup, worst matchup.
I think my best matchup is probably Imperial Guard. Just
Lots of things you
because-
can tag easily.
Yeah, lots of things I can tag easily. Not that much psychic denial. Yeah, I just think it's a very bad matchup for them. Like not having enough maneuverability to deal with the Seer Council, and I just outmaneuver them at every turn.
Yeah, I kind of feel if I was a guard player, you'd probably end up having to try and charge a lot of units into the Seer Council if you get the opportunity to, and just try and pile on the damage with damage forecast chance doing it. But that's not a particularly reliable way of doing it, and you lose a bunch on Overwatch if they're not careful. So
yeah, and I can also use the stratagem in my turn as well. So although it's a lot of cost, it's whenever they fight, I can use the stratagem straight after.
So they can charge you. You can interrupt theoretically,
and then you
can
get out of combat.
Oh, I really hope I don't play you and I have something like that come up against me, because that's a rage-inducing moment.
It is like it's almost like having a pseudo soul burst.
Yeah.
Because like if you did it in their turn, you could do the same thing. If someone charged into you, you interrupted and killed them, you could just move. So,
also you like, because you're running 3 wave serpents, you could always just tag their like tanks and stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's
only,
why.
you know what I mean? Not only you got the Seer Council doing its job as well, tagging, using the serpents to tag is other vehicles, and then then he's left with just a bunch of infantry and maybe the odd vehicle that's not being tagged, to do like minimal, very minimal damage against you.
Yeah. I've used that a couple of times. I used it last night. I had a wave serpent that within 2 turns it was it within like 3-inch charge range of a Tyrannifex, so it just locked a Tyrannifex down for like basically the rest of the game.
Yeah.
My worst matchup, I'm not actually sure. Because I haven't played Marines yet, but I'm thinking that my matchup against Marines would be quite good, apart from maybe Ultramarines, I'm thinking.
Because they have to
Because
fall
of
back
the-
and shoot.
and
I
fall
think
back and
what-
shoot, yeah.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think a hard matchup on the Marine side of things for you is if somebody was running like, say, triple Thunderfire cannons and maybe throwing in a couple of Whirlwinds, because I mean, I know like if they were to get the first turn, you'd probably keep your Seer Council on Deep Strike.
Yeah.
To obviously negate not getting pummeled by the artillery, but
Mhm.
then that just gives their artillery, like, well, the rest of your army's just pretty much free to get battered by their artillery.
Yeah, the thing with my list that I didn't like mention is obviously this list is geared towards ITC, so I could have fit 4 Wave Serpents in, but I didn't because that would have given away Big Game Hunter. The only secondaries that my list gives away is Gangbusters on the Seer Council, which is really hard to do because obviously
All the buffs are on them.
all the buffs are on them, and if even if all the buffs aren't on them, they're going to be hiding most of the time. And Headhunter, which is quite difficult to do unless you've got like a lot of deep striking and I'm out of position or whatever. For the most part, I'm going to have 3 Wave Serpents in front of everything. So it's going to be very difficult to get Headhunter if you're like a shooty army. But one of the main things was that, like, if I do go second, and obviously I've said that I'm going to deep strike the 2 Ranger squads and the Guardians, and the Seer Council. So that's 4 units that aren't on the table, and then the only other things that are going to be deployed are the support weapons at the back, and then 3 Wave Serpents, because the rest of my army on the board fits in the 3 Wave Serpents. So you actually can't shoot anything other than Wave Serpents if I go second. So I mean, I haven't come up against it. On paper, I'm not that worried about Marines, even if they were spamming Thunderfires.
Yeah, it's I guess the worry is that Marines go first and they screen out well enough that you can't get into a lot of their stuff, and then their artillery comes down. But that's a few ifs and buts that have to go their way, and things not working for you. So
I think I'd be worried about Raven Guard, definitely.
Assault Centurion spam.
Yeah, I mean, I can deal with the Assault Centurions quite easily because I can screen out with the Wave Serpents, and if they kill the Wave Serpents, that's fine, because I'm probably not going to be shooting a lot with them anyway because they're going to be deep striking most things. So I can use the Wave Serpents to screen out, and then they'll either get countercharged by the Seer Council, or they're probably going to find it a little bit hard unless they're running like triple eliminators to get at my Psychers. So I can probably deal with Centurions okay. It's more the screening, because I know like there's a lot of Raven Guard lists that are running like triple battalions with like 6 units of scouts. So actually screening that out is quite good, but normal Space Marine screening, you're probably looking at like 3 units of intercessors or something like that, which if I dropped the Guardian bomb down first and then the Wave Serpents shooting their star cannons and everything else, I'm not really too worried about it. Yeah, I'm not on paper, I'm not really too worried about it. I haven't faced it though, so I'm not sure. I'd probably be worried if I came up against like Iron Hands flyers, but then the same kind of thing applies, is that everything's going to be in the Wave Serpents.
Iron Hand Flyers is just it's a horrible list to face. But
yeah,
in fact, just any flyer list is a horrible list. Please stop playing flyers, everyone. GW, please stop making flowers half decent, because then they just get spammed. Let's just get rid of flowers from the game and move on.
The thing with the flyers though is that I've got the sea accounts.
Yeah, who can all
So,
fly and get up there?
yeah.
But
So
it's just
I'm not too
just
worried
get rid
about
of flowers, everyone, please.
The only other two lists that I'm genuinely concerned about is Thousand Suns because of the psychic denial and also the mortal wound output. If I get caught out of position with the Seer Council,
The smites really hurt them, don't they? 'Cause they're relying on Invan a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I could probably deny a couple, but I mean, most of the time I'm probably not going to be denying it. And then I'm either going to have no defense against it on the Seer Council, or I'm going to have Fortune, which isn't, it's a 5-up. It's not that reliable.
Yeah, it's a nice to have, but you wouldn't want to rely on it on such an expensive unit.
Yeah, so I'd be worried about that matchup, and also Tau as well.
Well, just the Overwatch.
Yeah, just the Overwatch and basically tagging stuff. Like, they've got the option of moving quite a lot. I know everyone sees like Tau is supposed to be like a gun line, but the Riptides can move like ridiculously far, especially if you Monkar. So Tau could easily catch me off guard, or catch me out of position, or something like that. And then obviously their shooting is just like everyone else is shooting against the Wave Serpents, but they've just got so much of it. Like, so yeah. I mean, off the top of my head, those are the two that I'm like most worried about. Everything else, like it might be a tough matchup, but I've kind of done like the mental gymnastics to work out like, well, I can do that, so I've got a chance. But there are like the matchups against Thousand Suns and Tau, there's just no avoiding it. So those would probably be my worst matchups, I reckon.
So I kind of talked about my sort of worst matchups when I was talking about my list. Fast infantry things that can run in and tag things I'm very vulnerable to. Deep striking threats, I have some units like the race that can go out and keep me protected for a turn or two, so that's a bit more 50-50. Tau, I've got a lot of big guns. I don't have masses of screen clearing, so I think the first turn, even if I go first against them, their drones can just take a lot of the hits and render a lot of my shooting ineffective, which is a pain. And my strength is very simple. It's going first against things that struggle to hide. So if I go first against a night list, I'd be very confident. But yeah, I don't think there's much more I can say on mine. So just to round out the show, just an interesting little thing on our listeners. And some of the more peculiar listeners. So most of our audience is UK. Most of it is in and around Woking, which you might expect. That's where we're based. Got a lot of friends that, well, at least pretend they listen. Perhaps we should quiz them. Leave a little note in each one and see if we can get them.
This will be on the weekly quiz. So.
Yes, on the weekly quiz. Dennis, your number is 7. Please quote it to us upon hearing. Leo, your number is 4. But yeah, so we've got some listeners from the US and Asia. I don't know who you are and how you came across us, but I'm really curious. So if you do want to let us know, get in touch. We've got some listeners. I don't know if it's one person that's listened to all the episodes so far in Mountain View, California. That's all I know about you. If you are listening to this, don't worry, I can't stalk you. We got someone who's listened from New York, or a couple of people in New York, and we have one listen from Russia, from Ufa, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, from UFA. Or someone's using a VPN, also possible. But yeah, if you are those people, please do get in touch. Leave us a message on the reviews on iTunes or something. Be really interested to know. And hi. But yeah, I think we'll end the episode there. Nathan, Rich, do you have any closing thoughts? Oh, sorry.
UFA in Bashkortostan.
Yeah, I saw that and didn't try and pronounce it.
It looks really nice.
Go there for a holiday.
Yeah, it's their tourism board that are trying to get us to come out there.
Yeah.
Maybe host a Surrey Championship event out there.
Actually, Looking on the Google Street View of random street, it does look very nice. So put that on the holiday destinations. Any final thoughts, chaps?
Just that everyone who's attending the Surrey Championship event, good luck, and I'm sure a lot of us will be keeping tabs on the LVO as well. That's happening, I think, this weekend. I think it starts Friday.
Yeah, but that's not as big as the Surrey Championship, so.
Oh no, definitely not. But I'm excited to see how some of these, how some of the big names do and their lists, and what's good, what's not, what to look out for, in regards to our list. So yeah, I think that's my closing thoughts, and just good luck to everyone, and just most importantly, have just a great time, because at the end of the day, it's just rolling dice.
The last Surrey events have all been really good. So it should be a really nice weekend.
Yeah.
So,
because I think this is the first event we've done where it's a 2-dayer, isn't it? I think we've only ever done 1-day event.
Yeah, we've only done one day event, which were sort of, I think they were coined as warm ups, and then we had the doubles just before Christmas, so which was also a three round event.
Yeah, which was our first coverage and our first coverage of tournaments. Yeah, and we'll do next month as well. So listeners are aware, we're moving to probably one podcast a month of about this length, to about 2 hours, going forward. So next month we'll go over how we all did. We'll probably talk about the LVO and other stuff as well. So a little preview for next time.
Yeah,
I'm not personally. I'm not too excited about the LVO this year and seeing what happens with it.
Okay,
no, not really.
Predictions. How many Marines in the top 8? Just one prediction, quick. One number.
6.
5.
I was going to say 4. So we've got a different split on everyone.
I think there'll be. I think just very quickly. I think there'll be a couple of Iron Hands, a couple of Imperial Fists, and I think we might see a Raven Guard in there.
Yeah, seems likely.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I just like most of the big names are using Marines.
Yeah.
So like last LVO, not to get into too deep a discussion about this, last LVO, I think the meta was at a point where, although you had some kind of overpowered stuff, it was at its most like diverse. Yeah, exactly. You just had factions and armies absolutely everywhere, and they were all.
Yeah.
There were some that were very like cheesy, like the Flyers and whatnot, but for the most part, like there was just so much variety in what was being brought, like GSC and different forms of Eldar and
Chaos had various suits
Chaos.
around.
Yeah, exactly.
Also,
Chaos,
that's when the
Chitauri,
Castellan Knight was pretty was at its worst, wasn't it? The Imperial Knights and the Castellan before.
Yeah, the Castellan.
Yeah,
that was just before the
yeah.
Castellan and Yunari and Earths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now it's just like Marines.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So
hopefully some of the Psychic Awakening stuff will mean that some weird, wonderful list has come up that no one's thought of yet.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see another. I'm excited to see like another Richard C. I don't even know how to pronounce. Yeah, I'm not going to try. Yeah, I'm just excited to see if there's another one of those that pops up, because when he popped up with the Tau list, it kind of shook everything up.
Yeah.
So
that's what I like seeing. Like there's always going to be one person who brings some like list that nobody would have ever thought of, and they do absolutely smash it. And everyone's like, "Whoa!" And I didn't see that one come in, and they finish in the top 8, and then people start trying to emulate that, and it just changes like the meta a little bit. And that's what I'm hoping to see, just like an underdog sort of non-Space Marine army come in and do really well.
You might see it from Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah, I think Chaos is going to be possessed bomb people.
I hope it's. I want Chaos to do well. I hope it's not the possessed bomb, because that list is just. I don't like a gimmick list with buzzings hit. But
I think people had a lot of practice of it at the moment so far. So I think some of the bigger players are sort of straying away from it on this one, because it's not been. Well, I don't know if it's been around massively long, but a lot of people sort of.
I'm pretty sure Jim Jim Vessels is using that.
Yeah, he is. I think.
Yeah, I've got him on Instagram, and he's just
TJ
finished. He's just finished painting it.
Yeah, I think TJ Lanigan's using his same case list he's been with a few tweaks, but what he's been using like in recent events. But yeah, 5 Space Marines. I think there'll be 1 Chaos. I think there'll be 1 Eldar in the top 8, and I have no idea what else will be in there. Can't really think. Maybe I think Brian Poulin's he's using his towel, which is very similar to Siegler's, so he might make the top 8.
Yeah, it's still
1
very
Elder,
good.
1 Orc, 1 Tau, 1 Wildcard for me.
Big
The others.
Orc.
Yeah, I think Orc Artillery is really powerful. So
What, the Smasher
yeah.
guns?
yeah, but
Yeah.
before we get carried away with the LVO anymore, I think we'll call it there. So thanks for joining me, chaps.
That's right.
And we will leave all the wonderful listeners that listen to this till next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah.